Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting video here on our channel, the channel where we explore the fascinating history, hidden secrets, and surprising value of coins that many people overlook. If you have a jar of old pennies at home, or if you're one of those people who still checks their change carefully, today's topic might just give you a reason to look twice at those copper-colored coins. Because in this video, we're diving deep into the world of the 1980 No-Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. Now, before we get into the coin's rarity, value, and the reasons why it has captured the attention of collectors, let's first set the stage by understanding the history behind this small yet significant piece of American currency. The year 1980 was a turning point for the United States in many ways. The country was in the midst of change, facing economic challenges, political shifts, and cultural transformation. But for collectors, 1980 was also a memorable year because of the pennies that came out of the United States Mint. Most pennies minted in Philadelphia during that time did not carry a mint mark. And while this might sound ordinary to seasoned collectors, what makes the 1980 no-mint mark penny so intriguing is how certain examples can reach values that would shock most people who think a penny is just worth 1 cent. Let's start with the design itself, because it's important to appreciate what this coin actually represents before we talk about its value. On the front, or obverse, you see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. His portrait has graced the penny since 1909, when the design was introduced to celebrate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. The sculptor behind this design was Victor David Brenner, whose initials, BDB, can still be found in small letters near the rim of the coin. Above Lincoln's head, you'll find the words, "In God We Trust," a phrase that has become synonymous with American coinage. To the left of his portrait, the word liberty reminds us of one of the nation's founding ideals. And to the right, you'll see the year 1980. Notice that on pennies minted in Philadelphia, there is no mint mark under the date, which is why collectors call it the no-mint mark penny. Now, turning to the reverse of the coin, you'll find the image of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This design was introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat years reverse that collectors also love. If you look closely at the Lincoln Memorial on the penny with a magnifying glass, you can actually see a tiny statue of Abraham Lincoln sitting inside, a clever detail that shows the artistry of the engravers. But the true story of why the 1980 no-mint mark penny matters goes beyond the design. It has to do with condition, rarity, and collector demand. You see, billions of pennies were struck in 1980. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced hundreds of millions without a mint mark. So naturally, you might be wondering, if so many were made, how could any single one be valuable? The answer lies in the details. Most of the 1980 no-mint mark pennies that circulated were handled roughly, stored carelessly, or worn down through decades of use. Think about how many times a penny changes hands, gets dropped, scraped, or tossed into drawers. By the time most 1980 pennies are found today, they're dull, scratched, or discolored. Collectors call these circulated coins. And in that state, they're usually worth only a cent, or maybe a few cents to enthusiasts. But here's where it gets interesting. A small number of these 1980 pennies survived in pristine condition. Some were never released into circulation, ending up instead in coin rolls, collector sets, or simply stashed away and forgotten. These high-grade examples, when preserved carefully, can be astonishingly valuable. Professional grading services like PCGS and INGC evaluate coins under strict standards, assigning them grades on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer a coin is to that perfect 70, the higher its value climbs. Imagine holding a penny that looks exactly the way it did when it left the mint over 40 years ago. No scratches, no smudges, no dullness, just bright, sharp details and a luster that makes it look brand new. Collectors are willing to pay large sums of money for such pieces. And that's why the 1980 no-mint mark penny has become such a surprising treasure for those lucky enough to find one. Now, let's go deeper into why collectors seek this particular year so passionately. The early 1980s marked a time when the composition of the penny was about to change. Before 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper, 95% to be exact, with just 5% zinc. After mid-1982, the mint switched to a cheaper composition, copper-plated zinc. This shift was driven by rising copper prices, which made it too costly to keep producing solid copper coins. So, when you hold a 1980 penny, you're holding one of the last solid copper Lincolns made before that change. For collectors, that adds historical and sentimental value. Another factor that makes certain 1980 no-mint mark pennies valuable is the possibility of errors and varieties. The minting process is incredibly complex, and sometimes mistakes slip through. A double die, for instance, can occur when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice, creating a shadow-like effect on the letters or numbers. Off-center strikes, die cracks, and other errors can also make coins unique. Since collectors love unusual pieces, a 1980 no-mint mark penny with a dramatic error can command impressive prices at auctions. And let's not forget about the nostalgia factor. Many people who grew up in the 1980s feel a special connection to coins from that decade. A penny from 1980 might remind someone of their childhood, their first allowance, or even the era of arcade games and soda machines that still accepted pennies. Nostalgia can drive up demand. And in the world of collectibles, demand is just as important as rarity. But here's the most exciting part of this entire story. While most 1980 no-mint mark pennies you'll find in your change are only worth their face value, the few that have survived in pristine condition can fetch prices that shock people who assume pennies are worthless. In fact, a 1980 no-mark Lincoln penny graded at the highest levels of preservation has been known to sell for as much as $32,998. Think about that for a moment. A coin that was made to be worth a single cent, something you might pass over without a second thought, has the potential to be worth more than a brand new car. And the best part is, these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered in old jars, coin collections, or even in the pocket change that slips through your hands every day. So, what should you do if you find a 1980 no-mint mark penny in your possession? First, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look at its condition. Is the surface shiny and free from scratches? Are the details sharp and crisp with no visible wear? If so, it could be a candidate for grading. Even if it doesn't reach the absolute top grades, it may still be worth far more than a cent. You can also check for errors. Grab a magnifying glass and study the date, the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and "United States of America." If you notice doubling, cracks, or off-center strikes, you might be holding a rare variety. Collectors recommend handling coins carefully by the edges, never the faces, and storing them in protective holders. This prevents fingerprints, dirt, and damage from lowering their value. And if you truly believe your coin is special, you can send it to a professional grading service for authentication and grading, which can significantly increase its market appeal. At the end of the day, the story of the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a reminder that value is often hidden in plain sight. Something as ordinary as a penny can turn out to be a rare treasure if you know what to look for. It's about history, it's about condition, and it's about the thrill of discovery. So, next time you're counting change or searching through a family coin jar, remember that you might just stumble across a piece of American history worth far more than its face value. And who knows? That single penny could change your perspective on money forever.